Wrestling stables are bloody brilliant, aren't they? We've all dreamt of being a part of the NWO, D-Generation X, or in my case, Titus Worldwide! But as I am constantly being told here at What Culture, there's always one guy who has to ruin everything. With that in mind, I'm Adam Wilborn from What Culture, and these are 10 wrestling stables ruined by one member. Number 10, the Riot Squad, Sarah Logan. The Riot Squad were always a bit crap, being honest, but they're somehow less crap now Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan are a gruesome twosome. Logan never really felt like she belonged. Her hunt-loving she-wolf character was kind of at odds with the other pair's punky rebel style. It certainly didn't help that WWE tried to book the trio like the worst high school bullies of all time. I mean, they were more likely to spill paint all over the backstage area than credibly challenged babyfaces or look like any kind of threat at all to the top female champs. Poor Sarah was like the class bully that Ruby and Liv only kept around so they wouldn't be bullied themselves. It didn't work, and their odds dynamic meant the Riots began sinking within a matter of months. Then they lingered around like a bad smell, pre-split, and Logan, of course, leaving the company. Number 9, the Forgotten Sons, JAXSON RYKER. This is a bit of an odd one because it really seemed like bearded bros JAXSON, RYKER, Steve Cutler and Wesley Blake were kind of onto something a few years ago. Their Forgotten Sons biker gang was decidedly Sons of Anarchy, but it fit the NXT product. Hopes were high once the group crashed on SmackDown in early 2020. As it often does though, social media got right in the way. RYKER's outspoken support for President Trump amidst sensitive real-life issues hardly endeared him to some backstage, like Kevin Owens, who publicly bashed JAXSON for his behaviour online and caused WWE to take the Sons off TV. Their momentum halted overnight. The threesome went from looking like surefire future SmackDown tag champs to an obscure trivia question answer 10 years from now. Cutler and Blake have since returned as King Corbin's lackeys, and RYKER is back on Raw with Elias, but the Sons are no more because of the latter's actions. Number 8, the $1 Million Corporation, King Kong Bundy. It is painful for this 90s kid to admit, but 1995 WWF sucked. Main eventers like Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker were forced to work with a ragtag bunch of mid-carders who couldn't hang at their level. That's why guys like Mabel bloody won the King of the Ring, and it's why someone suggested that the Fed bring back 80s behemoth King Kong Bundy for one last run. That was a terrible idea. Bundy wasn't the Hulk Hogan bothering beast of before. Worse, the WWF lumped him in with Ted DiBiase's crew and tried to cast the egg-shaped antique of a bygone era as the main muscle of his $1 Million Corporation. Tatanka, who had just turned heel, Karma and Bam Bam Bigelow, who should have been the only muscle that old Ted needed, struggled to offset Bundy's weaknesses. DiBiase at least upgraded later in the year by ditching the flagging WrestleMania 2 headliner and replacing him with Big Sid. Number 7, Team Bella, Alicia Fox. WWE were obsessed with quasi-gang warfare when they decided to call up a raft of women from NXT in 2015. Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch combined with Paige to form Team PCB, and Sasha Banks created Team Bad with Tamina and Naomi. That left the Bella Twins to do this. Granted, Foxy might have been real-life pals with Nikki and Brie behind the scenes, but that didn't once come across on TV. In fact, any and all interactions this threesome had were hellish awkward in practice. It looked for all the world like Alicia was only there because the other two squads had 3 members too. The truth is that Team Bella actually formed before both PCB and Bad. Think about that. Alicia, Nikki and Brie had more time than anyone else to work on their chemistry. They couldn't click, and that meant Fox was the ultimate third wheel. Number 6, The Revolution, Asia. WCW was a flaky, drooping mess by the time Shane Douglas rallied the troops to form the Revolution in late 1999. The idea had merit on the surface, though. The franchise enlisted other perpetually overlooked talents like Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko and Perry Saturn, and then targeted the established oldies, holding them down. It was another shoot-style WCW angle, but it had a chance. Sadly, and typically, the promotion buggered everything up almost immediately. Benoit left the group mere months into its run as part of a Sting storyline with Malenko, but it seemed likely that he'd be replaced by someone else who fit. Eddie Guerrero, maybe? Nah, mate. Asia. WCW's China ripoff, because Asia's bigger than China, I'd like to mention that, sucked any enthusiasm fans had for the Revolution out of every arena she strolled into. A promising stable nosedived as soon as she joined, because people could see that Vince Russo was far more interested in booking a D-Generation X imposter than coming up with something new. Number 5. The Nation of Domination, Ahmed Johnson. Here is Nation of Domination Chief Farouk leading his men into battle as a rowdy WWF crowd looks on. The Nation figurehead is closely followed by new recruits Karma Mustafa, D'Lo Brown, and Ahmed Johnson. Wait, Ahmed Johnson, as in the same dude who had feuded with the stable for almost 9 months? Yeah. Despite diluting the Nation's initial concept by adding Savio Vega and Crush into the mix at the start of 1997, the WWF somehow thought it'd be wise to double down and create a new version of the faction once those lads left. They settled on Ahmed probably because, well, nobody would see it coming. Why would they? Johnson had been Farouk's main enemy since late 1996, and the pair had engaged in several violent scraps on TV and pay-per-view as Ahmed valiantly fought against the numbers game. This made no sense whatsoever, which is why it lasted 2 months. Number 4. The Heenan family, the Brooklyn Brawler. It'd be a bold-faced lie to try and claim that every single member of the Heenan family was a top-line star. That's not really how managers worked back in the 1980s. They had their main guys, sure, but pro wrestling viewed Bobby Heenan, Jimmy Hart and others as miracle workers who could get anyone over. That's presumably why they stuck Bobby with an obvious jobber. Heenan took out from guiding the likes of Andre the Giant, the Brainbusters and Rick Rude to introduce the Brooklyn Brawler. His entire purpose was to look like a ham and egger that Bobby could mould into a star. This was supposed to stick it to family defector, the Red Rooster. The problem? Well, Brawler was an obvious step down from Andre or future clients like Mr. Perfect and Ric Flair. He was literally enhancement talent who'd been dressed up in a gimmick to give him a little more juice. It was never going to work, and he made Heenan's stable of wrestlers look weaker by association. Number 3. The NWO, the Giant. You won't hear any complaints from me when WCW fanatics point to the NWO and declare it one of the best ideas in wrestling history. I mean, together, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall were dynamite as the outsiders, and their alliance with a newly turned Hulk Hogan was bad effing ass. It didn't even hurt the group when Ted DiBiase was unveiled as a financial backer who could help them take over. It did, however, knacker proceedings when recent Hogan enemy and anti-NWO force the Giant turned his back on the Dungeon of Doom to become the Renegade Band's latest member in September 1996. What a stupid sodding move that was. Obviously, the NWO would go on to round up any Tom, Dick or Harry who fancied donning one of those t-shirts, but the Giant started that trend. Though he was a big name fans took seriously, he had no business suddenly turning to link up with Hulk and the boys. Utter bollocks. Number 2. The Four Horsemen, Paul Roma and Jeff Jarrett. The Four Horsemen's original tight-knit feel was watered down significantly by the time 1993 rolled around, and yet nobody could have predicted what was to come. Long-standing members Ric Flair and Arn Anderson welcomed career mid-carder Paul Roma to their exclusive club, and WCW fans collectively wondered what the creative nucleus was smoking during meetings. Roma was a solid hand, but it wasn't on par with Flair or Anderson. If that Horseman incarnation wanted to be the worst in the faction's rich history, then it'd have to stave off competition from the 1997 version. That year, Flair and Anderson were flanked by Chris Benoit, Steve McMichael, and Jeff Jarrett. That's Jarrett in his country singer garb from the WWF days. It was a poor fit, to say the least, and it didn't work out. Even Mungo McMichael, with his Super Bowl ring and, say, party-loving lifestyle, jived better with the Horseman gimmick than Jarrett. This was an embarrassment for everyone involved, and every bit as bad as the Roma experiment. Number 1. D-Generation X, Rick Rude. I don't know about you, but nothing screams attitude, anti-establishment or degenerate like Rick Rude in a suit. It has baffled yours truly forever that the first iteration of the iconic D-Generation X faction was Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Chyna, and a stuffy corporate-looking type. Rude looked positively mortified to even be there when Shawn and Hunter were making dick jokes or bragging about sexual exploits like Stifler from American Pie. Rick was introduced as HBK's insurance policy. He was supposed to be a heater for Michaels like Diesel and Sid had been before, but he wasn't necessary. Shawn already had Triple H and Chyna, so nobody was really sure why his clearly outgoing and anti-authority character would stomach a toned-down Rude. The formerly ravishing one's awkward appearances spoiled some of DX's fun during the early days. Mercifully, Rude bolted for WCW before the end of 1997 and let the rabble-rousers get on with pushing the envelope. And that's our list. Did we miss any out? Let us know in the comment section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from, for daily wrestling podcasts. Plus, you can let us know your thoughts on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE, and you can follow me at Adam Wilborn. Thanks for watching. I've been Adam from What Culture, and I'll see you soon.